Local Northwoods author Ed O'Casey is here to tell us all about his new book, which involves life and death events happening near the Texas-Mexico border. All right, so I find this fascinating because I'm actually from Oklahoma, so Texas is not too far off. But I find this really interesting that you mentioned life and death events. Can you go a little bit more in detail about those?
Sure. I grew up on the border, moved away for a long time, and then came back to El Paso. In the time that I was gone, Juarez became a really, really violent city right across the border, and so there was, it was the murder capital of the world for a while, yet El Paso still managed to stay, and still is, one of the safest cities in the United States. So it was very strange to move back and see, I mean, not literally see, but to be so close to all of this violence in this place that was incredibly peaceful.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I mean, how close is Juarez and El Paso to each other?
Oh, it's just the river.
Just the river. So just right across the river. And that is crazy that you're in this safe neighborhood, which is El Paso, and then right across the street, all this violence is happening.
Absolutely.
All right, so I also find it interesting that your book is not just kind of one genre. I mean, I guess one genre, but there's different stuff going on. You said there's poetry, there's journalism, it's a memoir. Kind of explain how you fit all these different things inside one book.
That's a good question.
You just felt like it. No.
It started with research. Honestly, I was researching a lot of the events going on, and then as I was doing that, I became interested in how my perspective was changing, and so I started writing about my own life, the research, some of my past. So I used journalistic articles, some short memoirs, and poetry. I've been writing poetry for well, a long time now, but that was my main focus to begin with, and as I went on I realized that the memoir and the journalistic aspects were just, they were involving themselves in there whether I wanted them there or not. They needed to be.
They had to be in there. I like that answer. All right, so remind me again, how long did you said you grew up there, how many years were you there?
Well, I think we moved there when I was 2, something like that. I was really young, so it was for as long as I can remember until I was about 16, and then I moved to the Dallas area, and I was there for about 20 years, and then, 20 years, and then came back for 3 years when I was in graduate school in southern New Mexico.
All right, that's interesting. You said 2 to 16, so 14 years right there. I mean, that's a big chunk of your life when you're growing up, and that really forms kind of how you will be as an adult, those crucial years as you're growing up. What's one thing that maybe the readers, if they read your book, what's something that will really shock them? The whole book. No.
Right.
Putting you on the point here. No.
I mean, it's just the intensity and the aggression, the level of violence that's inflicted upon people was the thing that was most shocking to me to begin with, at least. And then the fact that it happens. I mean, in I think it was 2007, there was an average of 8 murders a day in Juarez.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, you're mentioning violence. So to tell people what that means, it is death, murder.
Yes, and disfigurement, and I mean, just about every definition of violence that you can think of fits into what happens there. And then I try not to be too graphic with it, but I can't glaze over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a book that's based on that, your experience growing up. And real quick, where can people go to read your book or get more information about your book?
You know, there were copies available at Book World. They were helping me sell it. Mostly, I sell them from my desk at the college. It's available on Amazon. There's SPD is a small press distribution. They sell them online, and then I will be reading from the book on Monday, the 29th, at the Public Library in Rhinelander at 6 o'clock, and I'll be selling the books there. It's a really small independent publisher, so it's not super widespread.
Great. Well, here in a little bit, we'll hear actually you read parts of your book here in a bit, so stay with us there. And if you guys didn't catch that, he also said Nicolet College, but if you can't make it over there, you can also head on over to our website, WJFW.com, and click on that hot button. And like I said, don't go anywhere. Ed will read some of the passages from his book right after the break. Welcome back. We're here with author Ed O'Casey, who is about to read a bit from his new book, Proximidad. Ed, go ahead. Jump in.
Okay. Thank you. I'll start with a very short piece of memoir. In November 2011, my daughter drops from her mother's body and into my arms, onto our bed. The next morning, I bring her outside my father's El Paso home, naked for a short sunbath, 1 minute for each day she's alive. My father's house was built near the ridgeline, and I can see for at least 30 miles, probably 80 on a clear day. In the distance, across the street, between two houses, the view over downtown and into Juarez. 6 or 7 people will be killed in Juarez within 24 hours of my daughter's first contact with the sun. Tomorrow, I will repeat the sun bath and add a minute. 6 extra dead bodies, maybe more.
Wow, that is heavy. So, on average, how many deaths would happen in Juarez?
It fluctuates.
I'm sure.
The violence went down some, and it's coming back up now, and it's constantly in flux. At that point in time, 5 or 6 a day.
Sure, and why do you think, I mean, obviously that's the border between the United States and Mexico. Why do you think there's so much violence going on there?
It's a really great spot for the drug cartels to try and control, so that they can move merchandise across the border. You know, it's a really easy spot for transport.
Absolutely. So is your book, is it more kind of just simple passages about, you know, this chapter something different, this chapter something different, or is it kind of in an order that the end is kind of a resolution, anything like that?
I would not say there's a resolution.
Not a resolution. It's just, you know, it's real life, and sometimes there's not happy endings, sadly, in real life.
Yeah, exactly. It's ongoing. So.
All right, so let's talk about the title. Proximidad means proximity in Spanish, correct?
Yes.
All right, so tell us why you chose that title.
I mean, because there's a lot of proximity in it. Physically, obviously, El Paso and Juarez, but then because my mother is a Mexican immigrant. She grew up in Juarez, and when I was growing up, we spent a lot of time in Juarez. So I have a lot of emotional and mental proximity to Juarez as well, because there's this place that I remember, which was relatively safe, that I used to go to all the time, and has changed dramatically over the years.
I see. So when you were growing up, when you said, you know, you were there for 14 years, when you were age 2 to 16, you were in El Paso, correct?
Yes.
And you would you go to Juarez to visit? Okay, so you have been there. It wasn't like a forbidden area, don't go there, that's where the bad kids hang out. Did you realize it was bad when you came back as an adult? Is that when you kind of, things clicked?
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard some more about the violence, and then when I actually got back and started seeing headlines and talking to people who are living in the area, I learned a lot more.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Good luck, guys. Go get his book. We told you where to go for that. And also, don't go anywhere, because we have plenty more up north at 4 right after the break.